Clickbait title. I can't believe he actually said this. Oof. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. My name is kubas-meyer, and today I want to talk about a comedy special that will probably be on Netflix in a couple of months, but is not there currently. Anthony Jeselnik's Fire in the Maternity Ward. I say that because the performance I attended on Friday was taped, and also he made a joke about people using Netflix that only makes sense in the context of people watching the show on Netflix, and also his last special was on Netflix. So this is probably something you will actually get to see later instead of having to imagine things, particularly since I'm not even going to attempt to repeat any of the show's jokes, but not necessarily for the reasons you think. Look, Anthony Jeselnik is controversial. I mentioned to a friend what show I was going to, and he said, "Is he the one who tweeted, 'Other than that, how was the movie after Aurora?'" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "I love that guy." But he's a very different kind of controversial than the comedians who, say, whine about the PC police or whatever. They tend to toe the line and see what they can get away with, and then complain when people call them out. Look, I don't think there are any topics that should be fundamentally out of bounds for comedians, but saying awful things and then calling them comedy doesn't somehow inoculate you from criticism. Clearly felt racism under the veneer of a joke is still just racism. Anthony Jeselnik's comedy doesn't quite work like that. He spends his entire hour so far past the line that the questions you ask are different. The over-the-topness of all of it is the point, where casual-ish misogyny is mixed with an extended riff promoting murder-suicides. Putting them together, having the line always in the rearview mirror, means that the idea that you might hit your wife is seen as just as sick as intentionally dropping a baby, and they are just as sick as each other. All of it is bad. The clearest evidence of the joke is in the moments where Jeselnik, the character, brags about his brilliance and how good he is at writing and structuring jokes. In some past specials, he has taken to explaining what makes the joke so good. He didn't do that here, but he spoke down on people who couldn't put two and two together. But all that braggadocio is played for laughs, regardless of whether he believes the things he says about himself, which he probably does and definitely should because he is very good at writing jokes. He welcomes you laughing at him for it. He's laughing at himself too, because that's what it's all about. But some people don't get the joke. 3 years ago, I was staying in a hostel in Prague. I had just found out about Anthony Jeselnik and was listening to his stuff on whatever music service I used back then. Another guy in the 4-person room was from Canada. He was rich as heck and really kind of gross in the way he talked about women. But I needed some company being alone in a new country and, whatever. I hung out with a douchebag for a day. Sue me. Anyways, I played him some Anthony Jeselnik because I wanted to show off this new guy I found. And that was when I realized that this kind of comedy really is a mirror. Because he was laughing at something he found relatable, and I was laughing at something that was objectively terrible. His identifying with what is overtly lampooning humanity's terrible impulses is unnerving at best. And that reaction I actually found more disconcerting than his offer to show me nudes that he had been requesting from women on Snapchat. I declined. So the experience of seeing or even enjoying him requires a little bit of introspection. First, you need to know why you're laughing. Are you laughing because it's ridiculous or because you're awful? And then you have to ask, when every single joke is too far, what does it say about you if you only laugh sometimes? Every joke is just as expertly written and performed as every other one, so to laugh at some and say, "Oh gosh, how dare you," at others, speaks to a kind of cognitive dissonance. All of it is bad. And yet, Fire in the Maternity Ward is probably the tamest special yet. One of the reasons I wanted to see this enough to buy a front row mezzanine ticket was because I wanted to know what 2018 had done to Jeselnik's comedy. Would he double down on the most problematic stuff, as some, again, wham, PC police? Or would he change his targets? It's distinctly the latter. He doesn't complain about political correctness. Only once does he talk about the fact that he's now in a position where maybe he shouldn't make racist jokes. Lesser comedians might have used that to set up a series of racial jokes as a screw you to the man. Someone only vaguely familiar with Jeselnik's work might expect the same. But that isn't what he does, because, quite honestly, he's better than that. And indeed, much, keyword, of the overt and ridiculous misogyny, racism, etc. that was so prevalent in his earlier work is missing from this special. But it doesn't feel neutered. The jokes remain transgressive as heck, and as ever, much of the comedy is targeted at children, but some topics just aren't as funny in 2018. At one point, he tells a story about a white supremacist sending him fan mail. The punchline is fake, but the setup is probably true, and even if it's not, he's certainly had the thought, and that thought has had an impact. What makes seeing Jeselnik different from just hearing his words is watching him soak it all in. He's very deliberate in everything. The steps he takes on stage are as purposeful as the pauses before his punchlines. Seeing him revel in the discomfort of the audience and also enjoy the material that he has crafted. He actually broke into laughter twice before starting a joke, which I hadn't seen before, gives you a very different impression of who he is than an audio album, or certainly than reading transcripts of his jokes. So I'm glad that this will be coming to Netflix, that people will get to see his face even more clearly than I could in my excellent seat. His comedy isn't for everyone. It may not even be for most people. Indeed, a handful of folks walked out of the show. I guess somehow unaware of what they were in for, but if it is your thing, and for the right reasons, then you can't go wrong with a fire in the maternity ward. 8.3 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, that's great. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I hope to see you next week.